Have you been finding that some weeks you're just not feeling very motivated? Sunday rolls around and you're simply just not making progress. And not only that, but week after week, you're not actually seeing that you're actually moving towards something. You're moving towards like actually achieving your goals. And you haven't actually touched your planner for quite some time. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about like an easy and very effective, very productive way of getting back into using your planner and using your planner systems so that it helps you become a lot more productive and a lot more functional without the overwhelm, without feeling guilty. We're going to be cutting all of those things out. So if you wanted to see my very simple 15-minute setup of how we can return back to using our planners in the most functional way, you have come to the right place. Let me pop you over ahead and we'll get started. Now, I know I'm not the only one who kind of has a desk that pretty much looks like this, where you just have between highlighters and extra pens and extra cards and a multitude of different pens and markers and coffee and stickers and makeup, stationery, all the things. So the very first thing that we actually need to do is to kind of put everything back to where it belongs. I know you're thinking that you're going to use all that decoration and all of that journaling supplies right now. You really won't. You will. You can grab them when you're a little bit easier on time and you feel motivated and you really want to be creative. But right now, our main goal is to clear things off from our desk as much as possible. Let's get rid of the old coffee. Let's get rid of the stickers, the makeup. Right now, they have no business at being at our desk. And before you know it, we're going to end up with a clean desk. Now, I don't mean that we need to like deep clean everything, but once things start to clear off the desk, you kind of see like first of all, why are we keeping so many things on our desk, right? So there's that question. But then also, we can never really fully expect ourselves to feel productive when you have an overload of things that we're keeping here that are really not serving the purpose of us actually feeling productive. And now I don't consider myself a neat freak or anything like that, but I know what happens when I keep my desk tidy enough, because then I feel much more inspired to actually use the space. I feel much more inspired to actually sit down and kind of be productive and get things done. And I know that like things can accumulate between like, stickers and decoration and makeup and all the things. It is very easy when you have the space available to just kind of leave it on your desk. But unfortunately, it also leaves you mentally overwhelmed, because when you're looking at it visually, it feels like those are also unresolved tasks that you need to take care of. Once you're here, I guess we are ready to get started. Okay, here's what we're going to do. The first thing we're going to do is actually set our timer. It's going to be for 15 minutes. Then we put the phone away. We really don't need it. Grab your planner. In my case, I have my Hobonichi Weeks, and I love this planner when I'm really, really running low on time and I just need to kind of get everything on paper. We only need the planner, a weekly layout, and one pen. That's pretty much it. So I'm diving right into setting this up. So first, I like to set up my categories. The categories that I usually use is a priorities, which is sort of like, it just gives me like the focus of the week. An inbox, that's anything like events, tasks, reminders, ideas, anything and everything that you can think of that would be sort of like scrambling within your brain. It would really just go into your inbox. Then we have trackers. If you're a tracker person, please use this section to set up your tracker. I think it can be very helpful to kind of keep you accountable on some of your habits. Sometimes it's habits that I like to track. Sometimes, right now, I'm on like this mental health and creating balance type of tracking. And so those are the things that I'm really tracking at the moment for the whole week. So that includes things like sleep or going to bed early or reading or journaling or shutting things down earlier, things like that. Then we move into next week. So next week are just the quick 3 little bullet points that I really like to add. That is something that I want to kind of remind myself so that I know how to move into the next week. You get the point. Then we're moving into events. So now we're on to the left-hand side of the planner, and I'm using a ballpoint pen here. This is from Uni 1. It's in a 0.5 thickness. I really love this when I really don't want to fiddle with or try to figure out, you know, any fountain pens. The only reason why I switched pens here is because the Lamy is a little bit too thick for more detailed writing. So you get the point. The idea here is to enter as many of your appointments and events that are going to be relevant for the week. Enter them as much as possible so that way, again, it's not lurking in your mind. This is when you should have your digital calendar open. This is when you should have like your work schedule. All the things that are really happening, family related or work related, that are really relevant, this is where it goes. And I know usually sometimes people set up this left-hand side page more where they leave very little space for events and then a larger space for like reflections or whatever. I kind of like to subsegment it as like the third of my section here is really dedicated for events, and then just like a quarter of a page is actually dedicated for wellness. We'll talk about that in a moment. Then I just start kind of writing in all the things that are really a priority for the week. Again, it doesn't have to be one type of category that is going to be a priority, but the idea is that you just kind of enter in what is important. For me, what was important is to speak to an accountant. So some of it is work related, some of it is family related. For events, like in the events section, I leave a little bit of a space. As you can kind of tell, like right next to where I write down the event or like my work schedule or whatever, there is always a little bit of space right next to it. Okay, now let's talk about the inner column, the inner third column. That's usually, for me personally, it is dedicated for wellness. So that means like my workout schedule, any classes that I would like to do, any runs that I'm going to be planning on going on, the duration, what class I'm planning on taking, whether I'm going to the gym or not. You get the point. This is sort of where I kind of keep track of that. You can use this for weather, for mood tracking. You can use this like a multitude of ways. Don't get too caught up with how you use the inner third section of your planner, because what actually matters is that the first instinct that you have of how you would like to use it, that's the correct one. For me, it needs to be wellness because I need to really have like a full layout of my week so I can kind of schedule my workouts accordingly. And then I can also see any family events that are coming up. And then that way I can kind of work around them to make sure that I'm not double booking myself, if that makes sense. Now, as you can tell, like up to this point, I haven't actually checked back in any of the previous weeks. I just completely focused fully on the current week. And then this is sort of where once you've done all of this, you can take a moment to check back on previous weeks of any incompleted tasks that you wanted to kind of bring forward. But that's not really our priority just yet. I actually start color coding my like all of the events that are kind of happening, all of the things that I put under events, because I want to isolate to see what is work related, what is home related, what is personal, and what is fun. And so you can set this up in multitude of ways. I like to use some sort of a dot marker, like the one that I have here is from Midori. Sometimes it works really well, sometimes it doesn't. That's just the one that I had at hand. And when we're crunched for time, then really like the idea is not to make this as pretty as possible, but to make it as functional as possible. Now you can see where the subsegmentation is happening between the third and look, right now we're only like 6 minutes in and look how much we've gotten done. Like our entire spread is almost done. So the other thing that I like to kind of keep track of here is any quick little to-dos that are related to that specific day. I'm not going to get too much into that. I don't keep track too much of that on because I do find that like for each day, there's like very limited space that is available. So I like to add that into the inbox, but anything that I can kind of squeeze in that is going to be important for that specific day, sometimes I do add that in. So I kind of just play it by ear, and that's pretty much it. Then we're going to be moving into the next phase, which is going to be really important. As you can tell, we have finished writing in all the events. I added a few categories so I can color code it. Now we can add a little bit of decoration. We don't really have to go crazy with the decoration. If you want to, you can. When I'm short on time and low on motivation, decorating my planner can actually feel like it's another task and it just doesn't feel fun. But I like to keep them simple on these weeks, and I like to either just use up any remainder sticker sheets that I have, just so that there's like a little speck of color that's happening on my spread, but I don't think too much about it. As you can tell, like there's no rhyme or reason where I'm placing the stickers. I do really love these little micro stickers. These are actually from Midori, and I actually really enjoy them, and they have been lasting me for a really long time. I do use tweezers with them because otherwise my placement is just not going to be as accurate. But if you look, they add such a cute little personality without really overpowering the entire spread and without really taking away the detail of what I actually wrote in. And I think that's sort of where, that's one thing that I would like to caution you on when you're decorating your planner. Don't get too caught up on the decoration, because that can actually chew up a lot of your time. And it can chew up a lot of it can actually overwhelm your brain a little bit. And it might not give you the payoff that you're really looking for. So here I like keep it to the minimum. And I don't also look at decorating your planner as sort of like a quote unquote a reward for you sitting down and planning, because ultimately the reward, again, I'm using this in quotations, the reward actually comes from the mental clarity that you gain by writing down all the things that are lurking in your mind. It doesn't necessarily come from you being rewarded with adding decoration. Decoration just kind of sets this weekly spread apart from the previous week, in my opinion. But, everybody has their own opinion on this. But I just kind of wanted to point out that you don't have to look at like decorating your planner as something that you get rewarded with, or it's sort of like a prize for like putting in something functional, because some people don't actually decorate their planner and they still love them just the same. Okay, that's my rant on that. I also really love using on the right hand side on that page, the way I generally set this up is I leave this entire inner quarter just for the word of the week. In this case, the word of the week is going to be start again, which is really fitting because we are, trying to get out of a rut. We're trying to like return back to our planner. We're trying to be motivated and productive. So I generally just pick a phrase or something that is really relevant for that specific week. That's what I ended up picking. But you can use this however you really want to. Some people track the weather. Again, like you can use this in a multitude of ways. I would recommend, if you're using a Hobonichi weeks and you're trying to get out of a rut, use the same setup that you're used to. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. That can also stress you out, and that can also hinder your motivation to even using the planner. So if you find that a certain layout works for you, please continue to use it, because then there's a sense of familiarity. And look, we still have 4 minutes and 40 seconds and I'm pretty much done. But, I can add in a little bit more detail. I can check back in on the monthly. I didn't realize I don't actually fill out the monthly layout here too much, but that's something that we can kind of check back in and then see what other detail we can add into our planner, into the inbox, all the things, but it's just to show you ultimately, when it comes right down to it, you really don't need to have a ton of time set aside for you to have a good look over on what's happening for your week. But for the last 4 or 5 minutes here, this would be your time to actually check back in on your previous weeks, check back in on any events. This is also when we're going to be using a sticky note. I love using these really cute ones from Delhi. I really love them. It's easy to write on them, and they kind of stand out. This is when I add reminders. This is also where I add anything that is really specific to this week, but I really don't want it to kind of blend into my inbox. And also anything that wasn't resolved from last week. So that's pretty much it. This is how you can kind of set everything up. And look, we still have 3 minutes and 18 seconds left. So I think we did really good. I would love to know, here's your question of the day. What is one thing that you are going to kind of try out within your planner system, within your planner setup on weeks when you're not feeling motivated? Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you have found this helpful and useful. If you did, you can give it a thumbs up. You can subscribe, do all the things to support the channel. And in the meanwhile, just keep planning and keep journaling and doing all the things. And I cannot wait to see you guys in my next video. Bye.